What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. In today's episode, we will be extending further into the deep dive series by taking a look at the Pokemon known as Darkrai. Darkrai is an amazing Pokemon that will be featured throughout the Halloween event while also getting double candy. So you may be saying to yourself, is this Pokemon worth powering up? How good is it? Should you unlock a secondary charge move? Is it going to be good at just the rating side? What about PvP? If you have any of those questions, that is what this series aims to answer, and I'm very excited to cover it. If you do enjoy this type of content, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Darkrai. With a max AP of 3,739, Darkrai is a pure dark type Pokemon. We're actually going to go ahead and talk about the stats first because when we get over to the moveset, we have a bit of a conversation that needs to be discussed. So as far as the stats are concerned, we are seeing some good news related to the attack stat. At 285, it is ranked at 12th in Pokemon Go, including all of the Generation 5 Pokemon, even the unintroduced ones, so that is very solid. Unfortunately though, on its stamina, it is a little bit on the low side, so it will act more like a glass cannon. But as far as the overall rankings are concerned, it's still looking pretty solid for Darkrai, and I am very excited to take a look at those raid results. So let's go ahead and take the next step, and that's going to be the movesets. So as far as the movesets are concerned, we've got Snarl versus Feint Attack, and Snarl is actually going to be the better move consistently across Feint Attack. And then when we move into the charge moves, we've got Shadow Ball and then Dark Pulse that I'm personally very interested in looking at. For Focus Blast, we're not going to pay attention to it on the raid side, but once we get over to PvP, it's going to be a very good moveset that we will talk about. But when we talk about Shadow Ball and Dark Pulse, a lot of people are asking themselves the question, what is going to be the better moveset? And for those of you out there wondering why the heck are we worried about comparing the two, this is going to be why. When we talk about dark type moves versus ghost type moves, they're actually both super effective against the same typings, psychic as well as ghost types. So because of that situation, that means that we are going to have to compare Dark Pulse, which is fairly good, that's also going to get the stab benefit because Darkrai is a dark type Pokemon, versus Shadow Ball, which is a solid move, but Darkrai will not get the stab benefit off of it. So we have to figure out what is going to be the best case scenario throughout the simulations and what moveset do you actually want to get your Darkrai over to. Now, to add to the confusion, I'm going to go ahead and try to clarify this a little bit. When I end up running the DPS times TDO on the Game Press site, we end up seeing that Shadow Ball consistently outperformed over Dark Pulse as far as the DPS times TDO is concerned. But I have to say this, it is also very important to take this with a grain of salt because number one, you need to apply it to a specific Pokemon that has specific movesets to actually see how this ends up shaking out. So these are great numbers as far as potential is concerned, but what I think matters more is the actual application of it. What Pokemon are you going to go up against, and what are the results versus specific raid bosses versus just the potential? So let's go ahead and run the first simulation. When we go up against a Gengar, what you're going to see is contradictory information to Game Press, where we see Dark Pulse performing better than the Shadow Ball on Darkrai, and in this case it is in at that second position, and you've got Darkrai significantly further behind Mewtwo. But like I said before, Dark Pulse is performing better than Shadow Ball in this case. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, maybe that's just one situation. We probably need to run some more simulations, and I completely agree. So let's go ahead and run the second one. We are going up against a Mewtwo, and we want to focus versus the Psychic typing. And in this case, we've got Giratina Origin Form in at the number 1 spot. Then we've got the Dark Pulse Darkrai in at number 2 again. And then we have the Shadow Ball behind it. Now, as far as the time to win spread, I mean, it's not that big of a difference between Giratina Origin Form and then the Dark Pulse Darkrai. It's only going to be 1 total second, but the main differentiator is going to be the number of feints. Giratina Origin Form at 22, and then Darkrai in at 33. So yes, it does lose in that way. It's mostly because of the fact that it is a glass cannon, but I'm just pointing out the fact that so far we've seen Dark Pulse outperform Shadow Ball in 2 out of the 2 situations that we've done. But let's go ahead and run one and final simulation that I think kind of highlights the situation for Darkrai. And that's going to be versus another Psychic type Pokemon, specifically talking about Alakazam In this case, we actually have Darkrai take on the #1 spot, but it is with Dark Pulse once again able to outperform that Shadow Ball version of itself. And then check this out, I mean, the time to win, we're talking about less than a second, so it's really not that big of a difference, but it is clearly in the lead when you verse it against the Giratina origin form. So in some cases, you've got Darkrai able to take on the #1 spot. It really just depends on what raid boss you end up going against, but I can go ahead and tell you wholeheartedly that I believe that Dark Pulse is actually the better moveset that you do want to go with over Shadow Ball, even though Shadow Ball is an incredibly good moveset. So we talked about the raid side. Let's go ahead and talk briefly about PvP. So as far as Darkrai is concerned, because of the level that we're able to get it at this point in time, it does not qualify for the Great League. So let's go ahead and bump it up to the Ultra League. As far as its rankings are concerned, it's ranked at 143rd on the PvP side. And you're like, whoa, that's really not good at all. And I would agree with you. But when we take a look at the moveset, we've got Snarl, Dark Pulse, and then Focus Blast. That's where Focus Blast ends up coming in. But guess what? The best results are actually not from the Ultra League. Instead, they are from the Masters League, where Darkrai ends up ranking out at 25th in Pokemon Go, using that Dark Pulse, using that Focus Blast, and because you're seeing Dark Pulse show up heavily on the raid side as being the better option, and then for PvP, you're seeing Dark Pulse once again being the better option, and then of course adding on Focus Blast, I really do think that you should go with Dark Pulse over Shadow Ball. The debate between Shadow Ball and Dark Pulse is an interesting one, so I would love to know what you think about it in the comment section below. But we're here to answer the questions. Should you power up Darkrai? I 100% believe you should power it up. It's not necessarily the best from the dark typing or the ghost typing attacker, but one advantage that it has over other legendary / mythical Pokemon is the fact that it is firstly being released during the Halloween event, which gives it double candy, and then also on the transfer. So no longer is candy going to be the barrier to powering up the Pokemon. Of course, you're going to have to focus and make sure that you have enough Stardust, but the biggest issue with legendary Pokemon, in my opinion, is they are so expensive to power up from the candy side because you have to obtain them through the raids. But with double candy, I think that you could articulate the idea that it's going to be much easier to get with Darkrai, so yes, I do think you should power it up. As far as the secondary charge move is concerned, forget the move Shadow Ball. In so many cases, we had Dark Pulse be better, and then on the PvP side, if you do want to use it for PvP, unlock Focus Blast. It ended up being ranked very high. It is going to be somewhat expensive, 100,000 Stardust and then 100 candies, but like we said, candy's not going to be that big of a deal as long as you're able to get out there and do some raids. And then of course the Stardust, 100,000 Stardust, yeah, that's quite a bit, but if you're into PvP, then it is totally worth it from that regard. Anyways, I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to let me know in the comment section below. I would love to know what you think about Darkrai. I'm so excited to cover this topic and kind of sad that we are officially done with the video. But like I said, I would love to know what you think about this Pokemon and then of course the movesets, and I will see you next time. If you want to develop a deeper connection, I would highly recommend you to check out Patreon. We've got a lot of really cool things going on over there. Check out all of these supporters that we have. We are almost up to 100. We are also posting some special content, some behind the scenes work. And if that is the type of thing that interests you, I would highly recommend you to check it out.